Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Callsign Charlie Models. Today we'll be continuing on with the 132nd P-47D from Trumpeter. So far, I've gotten done with the cockpit and done some of the photo etch from Edward that goes on the fuselage before I close up the fuselage. So today, we're going to be going over what all I did on the cockpit and on the fuselage, and then we'll come back and have the fuselage all buttoned up and a few other parts added to the fuselage. So moving on with the cockpit, I'll zoom in here, get that to focus. Alright, so cockpit is done. I did some chipping on the floor and the seat. The Quinta Studios interior for the side panels. I didn't add the Quinta Studios control levers because those just typically break off with movement, so didn't add those. Those are Quinta Studios seat belts right there, and then the Edward look dashboard for the dashboard. It's a 3D printed resin, fits in perfectly. Everything so far in the cockpit has been a perfect fit, so no struggles or anything like that with that. So, and then like I said, adding the photo etch to the fuselage just before I buttoned it up, make it a little bit easier, and some of the stuff you have to go in through the inside for. So there's the front exhaust vents for the engine, and then the aft exhaust vent for the turbocharger. So I have some cleanup to do right in here, and then again up front, up in here, just to make it a smooth transition for that. Then on the inside, again, you have the ducting and all that as well, even though you can't really see into it unless you get it on a right angle. You can kind of see into it from the back. So not 100% all worried about that. Same thing with the other side. Again, clean up the point where it joins in right here and up here as well. So got the wing struts glued in, had the halves glued together. So what I did is I glued it in one side and then brought the fuselage halves together, which is a really good fit. You got to kind of push it together. Got that together, taped the fuselage half together, and then let that set for a couple hours to get good and hard. So come back, we'll have the cockpit in, fuselage half together, and possibly the rear horizontal stabilizers. And then we'll be moving on to the wings. So we'll be back in a little bit. And we're back. Last night I got the fuselage halves together, cockpit in, and the horizontal stabilizers on. So got a seam line to deal with on the spine and on the belly, but it's not too bad, so compared to what I've dealt with in the past. So that's done, and then also got some of the photo etch. I started on the engines and got the photo etch done on the cowl flaps, which weren't too bad to put on. So got those. You won't be able to see them, that's the only, but you know what, I'll know they're there, and that's the main thing. So got that done, and then started working on the engine. So got it all together, just need to attach the spark plug wires, which are all right here. So we'll be going through that today, getting all that done, and then getting the engine cowls ready to go. My paint booth right now is being constructed, so hopefully in the next few days, I get my paint booth back so I can start painting, but a friend is building me a custom one, so I have room to build some of the larger stuff that I typically build, because the ones I got on Amazon were just not cutting it anymore. So we'll come back after the engines are all done, and then we'll be starting on the landing gear and some of the odd bits and stuff for the rest of the fuselage. I'm hoping to have this done in the next, at least the build portion done in the next few days. So I'll be back as soon as I get done with the engine and start with the landing gear. See you then. All right, and welcome back. Engine is done. Added the Edward spark plug cables. Looking pretty good. I think when it's all painted and gets a good wash to it, I think it'll look really good. But the only negative I have to this kit so far, minus the little bit of flash, but it is an older kit, is the engine blocks, the cylinder heads, are all hollow on the back. So if you wanted to go the aftermarket route or have the panels open for the engine, you would have to get an aftermarket engine. So, I mean, that's the only downside from the kit I have so far. It's so far a really good kit, going together really easily. So that's all done. Put that aside for paint. And up next, we're going to start on the landing gear, which I have the Edward resin, so resin photo etch, or resin and photo etch landing wheels. So here's the tail wheel, pretty cut and dry, and then the main wheels, again, really good tread. Got this piece. This piece, you're gonna have to cut out the right around here, make those empty, kind of like how some of these are. But yeah, I'm gonna start that later, take a little break, and then come back to it. We're gonna attack that and the rest of the landing gear. So all of this is done, landing gear, and then after that, we just basically have some tidbits to get on, flaps. I already have the fuel tank done, it's not gonna have bombs. And then the propeller. Then that's it. And then it's on to the sanding and putty phase. And on to paint. So we'll be back in a little bit. Okay, and we are back, and the build portion of this project is complete. So everything is on. That's on for now until we till final assembly. So up next, I'll be doing the polishing the canopies and getting those masked, and then dealing with the seam lines that are along here and some of the wing roots and the horizontal stabilizer roots and the center seam line. Shouldn't require much on here, just a couple little areas. Again, this is an easy day compared to some of the other builds that I've done in the past. Right here is probably going to be one of the most difficult areas, but for that area I'll be using perfect putty, which is right here, and the lid fell off, so it might not be any good anymore. So we'll see if I can save it with some water, but for the most part I'll be using a mix. So if I want a seam to still be visible, like in the wing roots, like a panel line, I'll be using the Mr. Surfacer 500. I just paint it on to the area, and then I wipe it down with a Q-tip with some isopropyl alcohol and wipes off all the excess. For the areas that I don't want a seam to be left, I use Tamiya putty. So that's it for that. So we'll come back. This will be the end of part 1 for the build. Part 2 will be the putty, painting, and then part 3 will be the decals, weathering, and the final reveal. So for the canopies, I mean, they're decent. There's no seam line down the middle, but they do look a little cloudy. They look like clear plastic. They don't look like glass. So I've already done a test fit on them, so they fit perfectly to the kit. So I don't have to worry about filling in anywhere when they're attached. But in order to make them look like glass, I'll be using the Tamiya polishing compounds. You got the coarse, which you start off with first, the fine, which is the second stage, and then the finishing stage, which is called finish. So you just dab on a little bit of that, and it's just like waxing your car, Mr. Miyagi type deal, wax on, wax off. And then you use these buffing towels to wipe off the excess. So all in all, pretty easy stuff. So yeah, that's the end of part 1. Part 2 will be concentrating on the putty, getting rid of seam lines, rescribing panel lines and rivets that we lose while sanding, and then moving on. We'll probably do the primer in that stage. And then part 3 again will be all the painting, which we will be doing this top scheme right here. Let me cover that so we don't get blocked on Facebook for nudity. But yeah, we're doing the top one. So D-Day stripes and all. So hope you enjoyed this. Like, follow, subscribe, and hit that bell button so you get notified when I post new videos. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.